Welcome to another week in the life of the Nigerian Parliament. This is the Gavel, and I am Terry Kumi. We begin from the Green Chamber. On Tuesday, plenary was abruptly adjourned as lawmakers in the House of Representatives continued to be aggrieved over non-payment of contractors who handled some of their constituency projects. Now, the Speaker of the House called for a close-to-session right at the commencement of plenary. And after an hour, plenary resumed, and lawmakers continued to chant point of order, prompting the Speaker to hurriedly call for an adjournment till Wednesday.
Please, can you move for the House to adjourn by suspending
Mr. Speaker, point of order.
Paper to adjourn to tomorrow?
Mr. Speaker, point of order.
Mr. Speaker.
Point of order.
And by Wednesday, calm had returned to the House of Representatives. The minority leader, through a motion of urgent national importance, called for investigation into federal government-abandoned properties.
The House notes that the Nigerian Institute of Quantity Surveyors, as at 23rd August 2021, came up with a large quantum of about 11,866 abandoned landed properties and buildings by the federal government across the nation, and that this has resulted into colossal waste of resources worth over 20 trillion naira.
Afterwards, a point of order was raised by a lawmaker from Anambra State following the just concluded governorship election in the state.
We have many people registering, but we have not weeded off our register of dead people. I can tell you authoritatively that my mom died in 2013, and she has been continuously be counted as collected PVC. So when you look at that, you will see in Anambra State that we have 2-point-something million registered voters, while we have huge turnout for that election, yet it was adjourned low turnout. So I want us to compel the new INEC chairman to do something about our voters' register.
Next, the alleged violation of the Petroleum Industry Act by oil and gas producing companies prompted a resolution for investigation.
Worried that some oil companies violated the provisions of Section 236 of the PIA by failing to incorporate the host communities development trust in their areas of operation within the period stipulated in the Act.
The House then resolved into the Committee of Supply chaired by the Deputy Speaker, where it considered and approved the President's latest borrowing request.
The committee recommends that the House of Representatives do approve the President's request to establish a 1,150 billion naira borrowing program in the domestic debt market to close the unfunded deficit gap created by the increase in the budget size over and above the prior approved revenue and borrowing plan. Recommendation 1.
Now, on Thursday, the final plenary session in the House of Representatives began with yet another set of defections witnessed by leaders of the All Progressives Congress, including the national chairman of the party, the Deputy Senate President, and the Chief of Staff to the President. Representatives Sagir Koki and Abdul Mumin Jibrin from Kano State officially defected from the New Nigeria People's Party as the opposition numbers continue to deplete in the Green Chamber. The attention of the House was then drawn to what a lawmaker referred to as impending danger of the computer-based testing system for the 2026 WAEC examination.
Most of the schools in the urban areas and in the rural areas do not have functional computers, nor computer teachers, and as a result, they have not used computers before. We are further aware that, unlike JAM, no candidate is expected to write less than 9 subjects, including practical, objectives, and theory. The House resolved as follows: to direct the Federal Ministry of Education and the Examination Board, WAEC, to suspend commencement of the policy with immediate effect.
Meanwhile, public health concerns in the FCT have been raised in the Green Chamber, as well as non-functional street lights, which lawmakers say pose great danger to residents.
urgent need to address the alarming free balance of unsanitary conditions and mounting solid waste, blockage of drainages and sewage systems, and the pervasive darkness from dysfunctional street lights in the Federal Capital Territory, FCT Abuja. The combined effect of mountain waste, blockage of drainages and sewage systems, and pervasive darkness from the faulty street light in creating a dual crisis.
I think my brother has taken the license of exaggeration too far. And this is exactly the same thing that happened when people were saying there is genocide in Nigeria. We have not denied that there are killings, that bandits are doing it, but people took it to the extent that the international community has said, nobody can say the FCT is filthy. I mean, we all live here. We know how this place was.
The city is filthy. The city is filthy. It is filthy, and it endangers the health condition of the residents and the visitors of the FCT, and also the environment.
In the meantime, the House has passed a resolution to investigate the administration and impact of tax waivers and incentives granted between 2015 and 2025. All right, let's turn our attention now to the Red Chamber, where the first plenary session of the week commenced on a dramatic and high-spirited note, as the Deputy Senate President, Senator Barau Jibrin, announced yet another defection from the People's Democratic Party to the ruling All Progressives Congress.
It is with profound regret that I cite the prevailing, deep-seated, and irreconcilable differences, as well as the persistent and deliberating factions within the party at both the national and state levels, as a primary reason of my departure. Respectfully yours, Senator Jarigbe Agom Jarigbe.
This latest defection increases the number of APC senators to 76, further strengthening the ruling party's dominance in the Senate. However, as usual, the development did not sit well with members of the opposition who expressed visible displeasure.
I am happy that the Senate leader said that those of you elected on the platform of the APC are happy that some members of the minority caucus are joining you. What I don't know is whether those who were not elected on the platform of the APC are happy that they are in APC now. Having said that, Mr. President, those of us on this side of the aisle that have decided to remain here are prepared to remain here to sustain democracy in Nigeria.
At the last plenary session of the week, the overhauling and reforming of the armed forces was in focus. Leading the debate, Senator Abdulaziz Yaradua argued that the bill also clarifies the chain of command while providing the clear constitutional guidance by vested day-to-day operational command of the armed forces in the Chief of Defense Staff under the authority of the President. He also spoke about the recruitment process.
The bill upholds the supremacy of the Constitution and integrates fair hearing and due process into military justice. It corrects such provision as Section 173, ensuring that administrative reports like boards of inquiry no longer serve as convictions without trial. 2. Child protection and international obligations. It prohibits enlistment of persons below 18 years, aligning Nigeria with the Child Rights Act and international humanitarian standards. 3. Clear chain of command. It enforces the President's constitutional authority as Commander-in-Chief while vesting day-to-day operational command in the Chief of Defense Staff, eliminating ambiguities and strengthening civilian oversight.
Well, that reform also ensures that legally qualified military officers will be permitted to represent the armed forces in civil courts. A standard fund for litigation will also be established to ensure the timely and efficient handling of military-related legal matters.
This bill also seeks to subject military authorities to the command of the commander-in-chief, that is democratically elected president, or in a nutshell, subjects military authorities to the authority of democratically elected institutions so that they cannot be masters of themselves. So essentially, this bill is very, very important, and I urge my colleagues to support the second reading of this bill with the speed of light.
In amending this law, in supporting this debate, I would like him to look into the courses, the military courses. Because once somebody, for example, that the new Chief of Army Staff is course 41, all the people in course 40, 39, 40, they are gone. And we spend a lot of money training these military people. I want, in amending this law, I want them to bring at any time the commander-in-chief wants to appoint a chief of army staff, chief of naval staff, you should go by their courses. This was caused also by last administration, where they left one man to be chief, and we lost about 6 courses on the stretch.
A bill for an act to repeal the Armed Forces Act and to reenact a modern, constitutionally compliant and operationally responsive legal framework for the armed forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and for related matters 2025, SB 791, second reading taken.
Well, separately, the Senate debated a bill to establish the Chartered Institute of Revenue and Fiscal Management, a proposed legislation which is a major step toward addressing the nation's chronic dependence on debt to finance its annual budgets. The lawmaker has expressed polarized views during the debate.
This is like duplicating an act that is already in operation. If there's any shortcoming in the act setting up the Chartered Institute of Taxation, we should go into that act and amend it. So if we believe that we can enhance revenue by amending that act, then it is that act that we should be addressing and amending, not bringing a new bill and setting up a new professional body that will be doing exactly the same thing.
The bill eventually scaled second reading.
A bill for an act to establish Chartered Institute of Revenue and Fiscal Management of Nigeria as a professional body dedicated to the advancement, regulation, and promotion of excellent revenue and fiscal management practices in Nigeria, thereby enhancing efficiency, transparency, and accountability of public financial management and contributing to the overall economic development of the nation, and for related matters, second reading taken.
Welcome back to the Gavel. Let's go outside the chamber now, where the Senate Committee on Public Accounts reconvened a meeting with the NNPCL over an unaccounted 210 trillion naira fund from its 2017 to 2023 financial statement. But the Chief Executive Officer failed to appear.
If for any reason the present management of NNPC is having difficulty in garnering the wherewithal to provide acceptable answers to this committee, it is better NNPC comes up to it so that the committee will now find ways to subpoena
the
former officials of NNPC and NAPIMS.
Other members of the committee also expressed their displeasure over the observed gaps.
Those figures you mentioned, sir, about charging crude, subsidy on crude, and then NPC go on to charge subsidy on refined product. It's not just a matter of law. That is, the real word for it is fraud, monumental fraud. And the amount involved is far more than what our president is struggling to borrow from foreign countries. The fact that the GMD is anxious to cover up the fraud suggests that he may also want to continue with business as usual.
The committee noted that it expects the NNPCL boss to make a physical appearance at its next scheduled meeting to provide satisfactory explanations on the 210 trillion naira in question. Now let's stay with the Public Accounts Committee of the Senate, which also had a media conference within the week, where it announced the commencement of an investigation into the generation and utilization of stamp duty revenue across the country.
This committee has written all commercial banks to furnish this committee with information, and information that will be accompanied with figures as to how much that particular bank or collectively all the commercial banks have been able to generate from 2016 to 2024.
In the meantime, stakeholders convened at the National Assembly Trust Fund to discuss opportunities and collaborations with international partners.
Great work is being done currently by the Ministry of Digital Innovation and Economy under Honorable Tijani, and also with other respective government agencies. So I'm respect to BVN, NIN. That was not the case 10 years ago or 5 years ago. So while we might still have some little bottlenecks around that, but I think so many work has been done. And now you can trace people. The banks are involved. One thing that we need to do is that we have too many identities, all right? So the goal will be to harness all of this into something important where you don't have to reinvent the wheel. The identities can be just one. Abroad you have social security, and that's enough data. So how do we bring all of these data points into one so that we don't have duplication of efforts to make sure things are going seamlessly?
First is digitization. We need to ensure that all our agencies are not working in silos. We need to ensure we have a proper database for our citizens from birth to death. We have to make sure that whatever data we're collecting, for us to ensure that we have a proper budget for the nation to be targeted at the key areas where they are required, avoiding duplication.
Well, time now for Constituency Focus, where lawmakers give account of how they impact their constituencies. And here's Representative Clement Jimbo, who represents Abaketim Ekboika Federal Constituency of Akwa Ibom State in the House of Representatives.
First, we've empowered our people in terms of training on different skill sets. Is it ICT? Is it on soil plastering? And the rest of them. Over 400 of our constituents have benefited from that. Then we move into capital projects, road grading, solar street light, building of schools. So far, we have installed solar street light across the different communities in my federal constituency, not less than 200 stands of solar street light. Remember when subsidy was removed and the prices of petroleum products skyrocketed, and we thought it wise to make sure these communities are provided for with solar-powered borehole where they don't need to use generator or use fuel to power the boreholes. So these projects are currently on, and people are benefiting from it. We've equally started and completed town hall meetings in these communities. We've equally assisted our people to register for JAM, register at least 300 of our people in JAM, and they've sat for the exam. Many of them have gained admission, and they are currently undergoing their studies. We have equally graded nothing less than 30 kilometers of roads, rural roads, which were completely impassable before then. And so far, these roads are accessible for people, rural dwellers, to access this road easily, to make life bearable for them. We've equally done a lot of empowerment in terms of reaching out to our constituents that really supported us. We've empowered them with cars, we've empowered them with sewing machines, we've empowered them with grinding machine, we've empowered them with motorcycles, we've empowered them with agricultural equipment and tools, and we've equally followed it up with all kinds of cash empowerment. For example, the last one we did was to select market women and empower them with a minimum of 50,000 naira, about 93 of them. We've equally given scholarship to some of our constituents. We've equally empowered them with bursary, the students that are in tertiary institutions. And we've given a laptop to many of them that our abilities is capable of doing. So we have done a whole lot of empowerment in this regard. Then if you want to talk about the bills that we have sponsored and the motions that we have moved in this direction, which is equally gaining traction in terms of empowerment of our people. I recall when I was inaugurated, I brought a situation in my community which is called Obiobom, a dilapidated bridge that has been there since 2001. And I brought it to the attention of the federal government in the parliament, and federal government has intervened. Right now, that bridge has been constructed for our people to benefit. We've equally sponsored a bill for the establishment of a federal college of laboratory scientists in my community, in Abak to be precise. And that bill, by the grace of God, has scaled through first reading, second reading, public hearing, third reading, and it has been passed in the House, just waiting for the President to assent for that to be swung into action. And of course, the many motions and petitions we have equally laid in the House that have equally brought succor to so many of our constituents, not just my constituents, but Nigerians at large, because we've intervened for them to be reinstated in their workplace. We've equally intervened for them to be paid their arrears and a monument backlog and the rest of them. So by the grace of God, within the 1 year and about 6-7 months, we have occupied this office. Our people have really benefited immensely and from the robust engagement of our legislative engagement.
Well, that's all the time we have on the Gavel. Thanks for your time. Send feedback to the Gavel at channelstv.com. I'm Terry Ikumi. Goodbye.